Hello, everyone. This is the May 13th WSESD meeting. It's a hybrid meeting. The meeting is a hybrid meeting, which means that some or all of the public bodies meeting remotely and some are meeting physically in a previously noticed location where the public may attend to observe, listen, and participate contemporaneously. Please note that while we will strive to provide means for those attending remotely to participate in the public comment period, there may be technical difficulties or reasons that otherwise prevent or interrupt remote public participation. Therefore, it is important to note that the open meeting law only ensures the public's right to participate and comment at a public meeting by attending at the designated physical location as posted in the notice and agenda. If there are technical issues that break the connection, please get in touch with someone in the space. We will do our very best to reconnect you. Nevertheless, the meeting will continue as scheduled. Going down the agenda regarding the consent agenda. Anything that warrants discussion, please notify us, and that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be set aside for discussion. In this way, the consent agenda will be approved in one motion. That request should be made now or certainly before we come to the consent agenda. Are there any amendments to the agenda as written? Okay, I don't have any. So let's move on to student matters. Are there any students present who would like to comment at this time? Okay, I don't see any online. I'm going to move this forward. We're moving on to public comment on non-agenda items. This is a time for the board to listen and to take notes. It is not a time for the board to respond to comments or to engage in dialogue with the public. If appropriate, the board and administration will work on next steps. So, public comment on non-agenda items. Okay, we'll give it another minute. Okay, I'm going to move on to board matters. I just want to begin with a couple of comments. One, huge thanks to everyone who yesterday morning at 8 o'clock either were at Putney Co-op or Brattleboro Co-op. So thanks to everyone who did the heavy lifting, pardon the pun. And a special thanks to Matt Chibley for working out the details of this. Huge. So thank you very much. Thank you. No doubt because you now possess the expertise to handle this every year. There we go. He does like this. Thank you. Good. All right. You know, the June schedule of meetings is a bit odd. We have 2 board meetings in June, both of which are fully dedicated at this point. The first one is Tuesday, June 10, which has been moved to June 9. There's a conflict. One of the schools has a graduation on the 10th. So the June 9th meeting is actually the summit, and we will be meeting on Monday instead of Tuesday. No meeting on Tuesday, June 10th. Okay. The second SD meeting for the month of June is Tuesday, June 24, and that is the board admin retreat. Oh my goodness. All right, so those are our 2 SD meetings. I am wondering if we would like to have a backup date, just in case there is board business that needs to be addressed, which seemingly always happens. Ruby.
Can you just repeat that? Because
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
June 9 is the summit.
Is the summit.
We are not meeting on June 10. which is our regular meeting time.
We're not meeting.
We are not meeting on June 10. Dummerston is having its graduation on June 10.
Oh, right.
And that is a messy conflict of interest.
So are you saying that we are only having one? Okay.
Wait 1 second, I'll go back over it. We have 2 meetings scheduled in June, both of which are fully packed right now. The first one is June 9, and that is the 3-board summit. The second meeting, which is June 24, is again a 3-board and admin meeting, which is our retreat. So suddenly the SD has no scheduled meeting in June at all. And I am wondering if this board would like to just come up with another date so that we don't have to hustle and do a doodle and wonder when we can meet or not. Yes.
What about the 17th? It's a Tuesday, graduation will not be until that Friday. There will not be any other elementary school graduations that week.
On the the week of the 16th?
Yes,
Okay.
the 17th.
The 17th works for me. Yes, Mark.
Cam's is moving up.
Oh, Anne's moving up,
And,
okay.
and the
Guilford's-
Brattleboro town, elementary schools.
On the 17th?
No,
It's the week before, the 16th Monday.
Guilford's on the 16th too.
Okay, so not the Brattleboro schools, but BAMS.
BAMS.
Okay, so then what about,
I still think on Tuesday.
oh gee, so what are we saying? Anything else?
The 23rd or 25th?
I heard the 23rd or the 25th, who said that? The 23rd or the 25th?
Or Ruby had said the 3rd.
Or
Did
the
you say?
3rd, which is kind of, it's a weird cycle just to have it.
It's the 3rd, and it would be the week after the next SD meeting, so tell me what
What date was it?
resonates for people.
We're talking about the 23rd and the 25th.
Yeah, so we're looking at the 3rd of June, we're looking at the 23rd, we're looking at the 25th. Preferences? 6/3, 6/23, 6/25. Yeah?
My preference is either the 23rd or the 25th.
Right.
Just,
Okay.
and I'm.
Are you saying the same thing?
No, I'm saying the opposite.
Oh, you're
I
saying
can only do the 3rd.
you can only do the 3rd in June?
Yeah.
Okay,
Of those dates.
of those dates?
Yeah.
All right.
What time is the summit gonna be at? Do you have a time?
That's at 5. We start at 5 with dinner.
Dinner at 5, then
And-
the meeting will start at 6.
Yeah. Okay, so, yeah,
The BUHS has its leadership council on the 3rd.
on the 3rd.
Not
Okay,
that, I mean, I don't necessarily think that's the reason to stop everything.
right,
It is a factor.
okay. I'm more inclined to go a little bit into June, just in terms of wiggle room and with thoughts of what might take place in June or not take place in June that we would have to deal with around the time of graduation or just post-graduation. Okay, so we'll leave it at that. All right, thank you. And
So you're gonna finalize it and send it by email?
yes,
Okay.
yes,
Yes.
yeah.
I'm feeling nervous about June. I'm just letting you, like, all of a sudden I'm realizing my kids are coming out of school and my life's gonna collapse. So I think having it on my calendar as soon as possible.
As makes a lot of sense. Okay, so then I'm gonna make a decision right now and golly, the 24th is an all-day retreat. That's from 9 to 3 to 4. Okay, the 23rd, the 25th, bookend it.
We're looking for a placeholder in case something comes up.
Yeah, that's all, just a placeholder. So I'm gonna opt for Monday, the 23rd. Okay, can we put that on the calendar? All right, Monday, the 23rd. Sorry, Colleen,
That's cool.
okay. Okay, that's the placeholder, the 23rd. Okay. The other announcement I want to make, procurement, has very precise rules and regulations. So I submitted paperwork for the Student Advisory Committee, and apparently the paperwork, I'm doing the food at this point, apparently the paperwork has Tim's name on it, which can cause a bit of a kerfuffle. And so that was my last conversation with Mo. We stay the way we are, we're fine. But in terms of any purchases for board members, books, you actually have to make a purchase at a store. It cannot be Amazon. And the purchase needs to be confirmed with the business office before you actually make the purchase. I'm looking for some kind of a write-up that is crystal clear without talking about green pieces of paper and white pieces of paper. So it's really precise, but I really want it as watered down as possible. I'm not quite sure how we will handle some kind of an online video or something like that. It may be, not sure. I'll figure it out with the central office and get back to you on it. Tim?
Yeah, I tried to buy a book, but I was told by Mo reminded by Mo that there's a freeze on spending until July 1st. So we can't do anything until July 1st.
Thank you very much. July 1st? July 1st?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. A freeze on, okay, so I got plenty of time to work it out. You can't buy anything yet. Takes care of that. Thank you. Okay, Leadership Council updates.
Guilford's is tomorrow, big pushing it back.
Okay. Guilford has its meeting tomorrow. Any other updates? Yes. And Kim?
Putney had theirs last Thursday. I was able to join remotely, which I was happy about. And John gave the climate data for PCS students and families. He did a presentation on that. And then they broke out into smaller groups, and they're planning, for the long run, and just the forest of learning. They're trying to envision about the future relationship and using that for the school, but also for other, for the district and everything, and how the forest can benefit the entire district. And they also were discussing the differentiating between the Leadership Council and the PTO, so, because they do have both. Ruby, am I missing, I know you were in person, I couldn't always hear everything remotely.
Yeah, no, it was a really robust meeting.
Yes, they're always very robust, which is nice. So they have a lot of people that show up. And not just family members, but community members as well. So it's always for very good conversations.
Other Leadership Council updates? Yes.
Briefly, the Windham Regional Career Center Regional Advisory Board met last Tuesday. We went over the data which will be used in the continuous improvement plan. I just wanted, it's a lot of data and I'm not gonna make you sit here and listen to it, but I thought that I'd give a big shout out to the Career Center with its 92.52% graduation rate.
Wow, that's great. Good. Okay. Ruby?
There's a document that I don't have access to, so I want to kind of pass the baton.
The one I just sent to you?
Yes. Don't pass the baton.
And I don't have access to share it because it's not my document.
Okay, but I do think that there were.
Do you want my computer so you can look at it?
Or you could say it. The BUHS Leadership Council did have a few points that came up that the timing meant that it wasn't included in the board report that Mark submitted to us, but there was some feedback points if you wanna.
Yeah, so I'll just read from here, and then one thing to celebrate, appreciate about the month, bathrooms continue to be a topic, but YRBS data shows that nicotine use is down. One of 3 topics worth discussion at the most recent LC and amongst our school community. Safety, fit, and climate. We saw positive increases in recent survey. We talked about peer-to-peer connections were our lowest score and how to address this. Parent involvement. Should the LC host meetings at outside of BUHS? So should we do some of our meetings off campus to see if we get more involvement? Communications from LC members to our school board. We had discussion around the support for diversity at BUHS, and it's tending to be narrowly focused. A parent pointed out that affinity groups do not include a broad reach of diversity, for example, neurodiversity, economic, or international, for example.
And that conversation came out of inquiries and questions from parents around the board's letter in support of diversity or representation on the hazing, harassment, and bullying advisory council, and specifically a question as to why it was limited to racial diversity. And I mentioned that there's that question's come up on social media as well, and that we would just pass it on. But in the course of that conversation, it broadened to kind of the work that's happening at the school. So it was a good meeting in that respect. Pretty good conversations.
Right. Thank you. I think all of the identifiers are critically important. I think certain ones are the visible ones, and that's why they get the play. But I really do appreciate what's being said. I think we all do. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. And certainly we know that one of the big issues in our district is socioeconomic difference, which is huge in our nation. So, right. Okay, any other leadership council updates? I am looking at Dummerston's comments, and this is a public document, so it's not as if I'm letting the cat out of the bag, but there is a pride dance coming up at Dummerston, and there was also discussion this year. LGBTQ plus was the theme in terms of inclusivity at Dummerston, and there's every indication that will be continued next year. It takes a while for something to get off the ground, and it's been a very successful year, so I think they will continue. And we also received thanks from Dummerston for allowing the statement to be read into the record, and they are still processing what they're going to do with the statement. The last I heard, it will be sent around to the different LCs. Okay. Anything else, Leadership Council? All right. Board subcommittees and SU updates. Tim?
Yeah, this is not exactly a subcommittee, but the LAO committee, which has been looking at every aspect of English language instruction services, concluded
Can I just ask you to define LAO for everyone who may not be familiar with it?
The LAO Act of, well, it's a federal law that says that every public school that has English language learners should review its English language service program every 3 years. So since we have English language learners, we do it every 3 years. And Deb Coombs and Jen Kors led the committee, a very inclusive committee that met over the last 4 months. It was a delight to be on this committee. And we concluded our work last week with this 23-page document, which has been sent to the superintendent to sign off on. So that's where we are.
Okay, thank you.
You haven't approved it yet, have you?
No, I haven't seen it. I haven't received it yet.
Oh, okay.
But I'll be on the lookout.
It's good reading.
Great.
Okay. Ruby,
Could you tell us what, where's that report? Is that report responsive to the state, or like who's the audience for that report? Is it a requirement, or what is it?
The AOE.
Okay. And so it's going to.
It's a federal law, but the AOE is who the report is responding to.
Okay.
Bree.
I think I would agree to it was an amazing process. I think also audience is potential multilingual families that move into our district that explains how we support students and what services are offered. It could also be shared with teachers and administrators and staff members in terms of really understanding those layers of support. So it's meant absolutely as a required document to the AOE, and it's really a very nice documentation and almost operating manual, if you will, for our multilingual supports here within the district. So I think it's really nice that there are multiple audiences too to guide the work.
And you'll send this to the board at some point? Will we see it?
It'll be posted on the website.
It'll be posted?
Yeah. I think they had a couple edits to make, and they wanted to, in the vein of being very inclusive, they reached back out to everyone who had been on the committee to take a survey to make sure they approved the edits, and so they wanted to wait for that before sending it off.
Okay. Other updates? Board, SU? Anything? Ruby?
This is really just to let folks know with all of the changes to board meetings, it really throws a wrench in the finance committee planning. So we do have a plan for May. The finance committee is meeting on Tuesday, the 27th at 5 p.m., which is right before a meeting, which is not our preference, but it was the time that worked. So that will happen in May. With all of the changes to June, I'll consult with Frank, but for board members who are on the committee, I imagine we will just need to meet sometime before the 23rd. So we'll find time, but it will not be in the normal cycle. And then I'm pretty sure we take a break, or at least Frank takes a break. For he's not part of our meeting in July and August, so we do want to make sure that we stick with the schedule and do something in June. So
Okay, and once your meeting schedule beyond May 27 is finalized, would you send that to the entire board?
yes, I think that we had our meeting cycle is typically going to be the Monday at 6 p.m. before the first board meeting of the month, but that has just not worked out the last few months.
Right. Okay, anything else?
The SU meets tomorrow. Our presentation is on a portrait of a graduate, which might be of interest to everyone here, and we will be discussing the transportation contract.
Okay, and attached to the SU agenda is the report, portrait of a graduate. It's attached at this point. Okay. Did I see someone else's hand up? Tim?
Yeah, you can add to this, Deborah, if you want. But the Student Advisory Committee met last week, and they solidified their plans to, with the Dean of Students, with Chris Brewer, to do move-up discussion groups for 8th graders on May 30th, June 2nd, and June 3rd. So they will be discussing things like athletics, arts, clubs, student advocacy, academies with 8th graders. It's I think it's a really nice thing they're doing.
Will that outreach extend to Putney and Dummerston?
Absolutely.
Excellent.
Tim, it's them coming to us, right? So I think that those 3 dates are times that the students are gonna be, all the sending students are gonna be coming to the UHS.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, I don't know how that's going to work with Dummerston and.
They come, so BAMS has 2 days, and then Dummerston, Putney, and any sending school kids that are choosing to come here go on the 3rd day.
Their bus.
Yeah.
Thank
It's a field trip to the high school.
you. Yeah.
Okay, anything else? All right, we are moving on to legislative issues related to education. Okay.
me go first?
please.
You can talk all night.
So the Senate passed 491, the yield bill, which is, it was done on the 7th. That bill's gonna utilize $118 million to buy down property tax rates. Senate Finance Committee is considering draft 9.1 of 454 this week and is expected to vote on Thursday. There's a memo been submitted raising significant concerns with the draft, although I haven't read the memo yet to see specifically what. H 480 is the miscellaneous education bill under consideration this week in the Senate Education Committee. There's several provisions in the bill. One is a behavioral threat assessment team policy. Another is technical changes to the school library material selection law, and the committee is taking testimony this week on adding the cell phone policy requirement from H 54 to H 480. Your turn.
Did you say regarding 480, there are gonna be changes to library?
Library material selection law.
Okay.
So,
And can I, one more thing, has that bill, that's still a bill, that has not been passed yet?
Right, it's under consideration
It's consideration, okay,
this week.
okay. I know that for policy, we are sort of moving down the pike to start talking about library procurement, so, okay, thanks. Tim?
yeah, so things are moving fast and furiously with the legislature because they end their work for the year on May 30th and don't reconvene until January. However, there will be a group, I'm told, that will continue work on 454 until it's done. So I'm not sure how that works, how the group is going to work without the legislature there. But Emily Kornheiser says that the work will be finished in time to present something to the governor this year.
So that means before May 30th?
That's what's, I couldn't
the
understand,
question.
it was cryptic,
Okay.
whether it's May 30th or sometime during the summer.
Right.
We all got an email from Vermont, from VSBA. If you're really interested in 454, I urge you to dig into that there's a lot of changes. But the talk of the town in the last few weeks have been the weights and whether or not to include sparsity. And that really wouldn't affect our district. Sparsity means giving the extra weight to schools that are in low population density areas. Because we're a merged group, sparsity, as we know from French, wouldn't apply to us. We wouldn't get a break on Guilford and Dummerston and Putney. By the way, those, if you're interested, the population density for Guilford is 57 per square mile. Dummerston is just above that. Brattleboro is like 161, and Manhattan is 13,000. So we're pretty sparsely populated.
Manhattan, Vermont.
No, Manhattan, New York. So weights is one thing, but the big issue is about consolidation, school closures, and the foundation formula, and that's where the Senate committee has made some modifications to the House committee. Some are good, some are bad. There'll be an update this Monday from the Rural Schools Community Alliance, but it just doesn't look good as far as a governance plan or well, you can read the report. The Senate version took out school size and class size minimums, as well as district sizes of 4,000. But the Senate would like to a separate group in the Committee on the Future of Education in Vermont to reconsider district sizes, but the Senate wants that to be only a legislative committee, whereas the World Schools Community Alliance is arguing that superintendents, a school board member, and others be involved in deciding what the size of a district should be. So it's very complicated stuff. That's all I want to say now.
So the VSBA, earlier today, I just glanced at it, and they do a compare and contrast for H54. What the proposed changes are from the Senate, what the original looks like. There was something that said the governor's buy down of taxation, that, am I missing the boat on this, $180-something million, that has to be, that's gonna come out of taxpayers the following year.
Yeah, that's the 118 million.
For the 118 million.
For the buyback.
For the buyback, yeah.
For the property taxes.
Yes.
It will result in an average property tax increase of 1% statewide in fiscal year 26, but it creates a hole in the education fund which will need to be filled in fiscal year 27.
Okay, there we go, right? Somebody has to fill it. Okay, that's what I read. How is it gonna be filled? Okay, anything else legislatively? Jody.
Hi, excuse me. I just want to back up what Tim just said about the legislature. It is going very fast. It's been in the Finance Committee. It's going to Ways and Means. Everybody's got to put their finger into it. And there are some people up there in the legislature who are just, I don't know what they are. They're going to do what they want to do, no matter what their constituents want or no matter what anybody wants. So the more people who do write to their legislatures or write to the whole Senate or write to the whole House of Representatives, and let them know how you feel about this, or we're going to be in a hole down here. And I don't think we've had such good schools for so many years, and it's going to be awful. So I think we really do need to all stand up and not just rely on the rural group. They have been working very, very, very hard on this. And so we need to back them up. So please, everybody, step in now. Now's the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Jody. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. I'm going to move on to letter D, which is update regarding board goals. I don't know if anyone wants to chime in. This was a group of Tim, Kim, Jessica, and Ruby.
Yeah, so we've been doing a little bit of work on the side. We haven't met again, but we've been emailing. Tim and Ruby have gathered some information from other districts on some goal setting. There's more information to come, I think, with the DQS standards, and the AOE is going to release some guidance on board goal setting and evaluation. So we're kind of in a data information gathering phase right now. Once we review all that, hopefully the information will come from the AOE and we'll have more to go off of.
Okay, great.
Anyone else want to chime in with more? That's more than time.
All right.
One, I'd like to add, yeah, it kind of dawned on me that it's difficult to set board goals until we do a board evaluation. So I'm hoping that we can have some kind of board evaluation to help us set board goals. It seems logical to me.
And it's also tied to our ongoing discussions having to do with CIP and the planning that we're, those of us who are in those planning sessions are also having discussions about what do board goals look like. Okay, Ruby?
As Jessica mentioned, I shared this with that subgroup, and I'm happy to share it with anyone else, but I did meet with board chair from Addison Northwest, Mark Koenig, and he is someone who is pretty regularly on panels and workshops with the VSBA. I think he's a representative of the VSBA. He also, it turns out, which was convenient that this was the case, but he chaired a committee that was focused on DQS, the district quality standards, and the educational quality standards. So he's really very well informed about what they are and also about when they're coming. You know, so he was able to talk about what the district quality standards might do for us in terms of helping us to organize our goals. And he had some pieces of advice that I passed on and we can talk about in more detail. But I would just kind of reinforce what Tim just said. I think what I'm hearing is the district quality the purpose of the district quality standards is in part to help boards operate effectively and be self-evaluative. And in that process, thinking about our goals in terms of our effective board governance work is what those standards are meant to help us do to some degree. But I do think that the work that's been challenging for this board and was a piece of advice from Mark that he's seen in the Addison board is that when we do set goals, whether it's coming from the district quality standards or if we just set goals ourselves, to not get too overly ambitious. Like set, you may have 10 goals that you think are really, really important. You've got to hone in on one or two in order to have an effective, year. And that was something I think that we've struggled with, because there's so much going on and there's so many things that are taking our focus. We have struggled with isolating it. So anyway, that was my takeaway from that conversation. I did share it with the group, although we haven't had a chance to talk it through. That's all good by now.
All right. Okay. Thanks. I would be interested to hear examples of board goals because I think sometimes it's hard to figure that out at times. Mm-hmm. So examples of what board goals are.
Yeah, and I did ask, I'll follow up with Mark. He is sharing with us, he'll share a link to some examples of board goals, some examples of reporting that's specifically related to the board goals, and just out of curiosity, what their kind of board calendar is, so that we can look at it and think about what can we learn from that and what makes sense and what doesn't for our district.
Okay.
So when that comes, I'll share it with the subgroup, and then at some point I assume we'll reconvene and then bring back something to the whole.
Okay. All right. I mean, I think if we do not have to invent the wheel, that would be great, mm-hmm. and piggyback off of the success of other boards. Mm-hmm. So, anything else?
Yeah, I just want to say, this happens every time we talk about strategic planning, difference between goals and objectives. Goals are very, very broad. They aren't measurable. Objectives are. And every set of goals that I've seen in other districts have very broad goals, like improve the academic achievement of our students. And underneath those, of course, are maybe 3 or 4 objectives.
Okay, thank
That's
you.
all.
Okay, thank you. the next item on the agenda is, so this is an ongoing discussion, and we'll come back to this. Thank you. The next item is to consider an annual review of the district's ongoing social justice and anti-racist commitment, which is on the website. It's also attached to the agenda. Yes.
I thought that this was being worked on by the Social Justice Committee, is that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Just
Yeah, so, and Matt and Jocelyn and Mikaela Sims.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, I'm prepared to talk about that.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. So we met, and I want to give a big shout out to Mikaela, to Shannon for a lot of their work outside of the meeting. We discussed and reviewed the ongoing commitment to social justice document. We considered opportunities to amend that document, to add to it, to enhance it. And I think the felt sense was that there is strong utility in preserving what was written at that time as a historical point in time, and to add to it, right? Rather than sort of rewriting it. And so some of that work was done. I emailed board members just at the start of this board meeting to review the comment, right? The 2025 draft comment update. So I would encourage board members to take a look. And I think that what we came to, and certainly Jocelyn, Mikaela, chime in here if I'm misrepresenting, but the last bullet point on the commitment to social justice, the review, right? Let me get the wording correctly. Hold ourselves accountable to at least annually taking an organizational inventory of how well we're doing in terms of meeting the above comments and then taking corrective action as required. I believe we believe that the administration on multiple occasions has brought forward information to the board as to how we're doing. And yet the Social Justice Committee could start some of its work right now on what would the organizational inventory, what could that potentially look like? So I think that will be our next steps, perhaps. But at least to start off, the comment, the draft, the ongoing social justice and anti-racist comment 2025 update is ready for you all to review.
Okay, all right, so you just sent that out to us today?
I did, just before this meeting.
Okay, so then I would like to put this on the agenda again for the next meeting so that we have a chance to do a compare and contrast. Because I'm assuming the majority of us have not had a chance to look at it. Ruby?
The Social Justice Committee met, but I didn't see an agenda and I haven't seen minutes. And so I wonder if I know that it's a new configuration, so it might just have fallen through the cracks, but just as a reminder, I do think the Social Justice Committee is an engagement point with our community that's people have a lot of interest in. So I think making sure that we're warning those meetings and putting the minutes up would be a good idea.
Yeah.
And it seems to me warned meetings need to be recorded.
They don't need to be recorded. They need to be, the minutes need to be recorded. There's not a requirement to have a BCTV or a Zoom recording, but you can.
Yeah, okay. It was an ongoing conversation having to do with leadership councils, which do not have to be recorded, but it is, I know finance records, policy records. Yeah, I would think maybe social justice might want to record its bid at this point, right? Okay. So it'll be on the next agenda. We meet again on the 27th?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks. Okay, now, the final item under board matters is a review of our annual commitment, our contract to the Vermont School Board Associations. Now that contract is handled by the supervisory union side of the house, and Mikaela, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So it's that's a contract that's handled by the supervisory union side of the house, but we actively engage with the VSBA on the SD. And so it's something that we might want to consider. I don't even know when the contract is up.
But I don't remember.
Yeah, okay. So, any comment at this point? I mean, we can revisit this, but Brian.
Yeah, just a question. A contract, what's involved in the contract? So we have a formal relationship with them. I assume that's what the contract is, but what is that exactly? What does it involve?
In theory, we're paying them to represent the interests of school boards, this school board. It entitles us to this much legal service, some training, a lot of instruction manuals that they have.
And the cost?
Don't know what it'll be this year.
The last I remember, somewhere around $11,000, $12,000 annually. And that enables us to rely on the VSBA for assistance having to do with evaluation of the superintendent, which happens annually, and the multiple webinars and Zoom sessions.
And do I recall correctly that this comes to our agenda because of a question or concern from the public?
Yes.
Thank you.
It does, and it is directly related to the VSBA's engagement with the legislature. And whether we feel we are, and I see a hand up right now, whether we feel we are getting a service that we need, right? Or a service that is effectively representing us. So, Liz, I see your hand.
Yeah, I haven't been following it as closely as I should be, but I believe there was 1 year when we did not join the VSBA because of their actions during following Act 46. And I don't think that they're really advocating, I could be wrong, but I don't think that they're really advocating for schools in the current legislation. They're not taking into concern or into account the concerns of their members, and that includes a lot of these small rural schools. If that's correct, then the SU board may decide to not join. We've done it before, and they actually did change somewhat after that. But somebody with more, who has had more focus on what's going on in the legislature could probably answer that better. But I want you to be very cautious about it, because if they burn us again, we're burned, they're supposed to be representing us, and if they're not, then why are we paying them?
Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Ruby.
I think I disagree with what Liz just said, and what I want to just call into the room is the letter from the federal government to the state, and the work that happened to apply pressure to the AOE in terms of response. That was critically important work, and it wasn't just the VSBA that did it. Things. It was a group of people, but they were a key piece. And our presence, our connection to the VSBA allowed us as a district to apply pressure to the VSBA to represent us, and they did. And that alone, I think, really is powerful. And so I would really caution us backing away from the VSBA at this juncture, with everything going on, with so much swirling around in Montpelier and coming from the federal government. There's so much change. We need to have advocacy, and I think that the VSBA may not be perfect, and I think we have history that is, challenging for some people in our community around the VSBA. But I think in the balance of things, I think they've done more good than harm, particularly in these last few years. And so I would advocate that we stay the course and we continue to support the VSBA and take advantage of what they offer.
In terms of recent missteps, there was a misstep having to do with transgender coming out of the VSBA, and they responded pretty quickly to an outpouring of concern and anger even, and they backtracked with a letter of apology. So that's a good thing. Yes, that's a good thing, to be responsive in that way. Jody, I see your hand, but there's another board member, Tim.
Yeah, again, regarding that compliance letter, I think that the VSBA was a little late. They responded in the end as we wanted them to, but initially they were ready to jump on let's comply. Regarding the expense, they provide services like providing model policies, but we can get that from V.S.A. They have seminars and webinars. Anybody can join those. They have the annual conference, which a handful of us go to every year. We can go as non-members to that. They have a la carte services that we can buy and perhaps save us money from a full subscription. So it's just, it's not either or. We can either have full membership or decide to just buy particular services that they offer, or not.
Thank you. Jody Norman from Dummerston.
Okay, I was told that I couldn't be unmuted. I agree with almost everybody who's spoken so far. And I started off with Liz because Liz and I have had issues with the VSBA for years, and they have not represented the smaller boards. They represent mainly Burlington area. I'm not happy with what they're doing now as far as Montpelier is concerned. They're kind of being really wishy-washy about it, and well, we don't know about this or we don't know about that, and they're not standing up for the boards. I'm looking at the rural community group who's in there fighting continually for the smaller boards, and I'm looking at the amount of money that you're paying VSBA, and they're not really backing us. My questions to the board, Tim just answered for me, because I thought I was informed at one time by a member of the VSBA that you could take the courses, you could do this, you could pay for that and not fully belong. I'm not advocating right now for pulling out, but I think I'm advocating right now for getting on their case, because they seem to respond when you really are honest with them and say, I don't really think you're representing us, and this is really bothering us. And maybe the board would back out if you don't, shape up, I guess is the word that I would use. Because I've never been happy with them, because they've always been this way. They've been worse than they are now, but because they did improve when people got on their case. So so I kind of agree with Ruby. I'm going back and forth between everybody, but they've pretty much said it all. Thank you.
I have found them to be quite a resource. Some of the webinars, they're very repetitive. We understand that. And some of them are really well put together. So it may be something that we want to take a look at in terms of the a la carte and just what's involved. And even to place maybe a conference call, the two of us. I'm looking at Ann Beekman as chair of the SU, to Sue Siglowski, just to give her indication of this conversation.
Okay. That'd be really good stuff.
Okay. Okay, so we'll take that as the next step. Tim.
One way of shaping the direction of the VSBA is by writing resolutions. They've sent out a call for school boards to submit resolutions that might shape their philosophical foundation. And there's been at least one member of the RSCA who's written a sample resolution that we might consider. I'll just read it, it's very short. Be it resolved that the VSBA will vigorously oppose any legislation that seeks to force the consolidation of school districts or make it easier to force the closure of small schools, and will seek the repeal of any legislation approved in 2025 that would do so. That's the kind of resolution that I would like to see this school board submit to the VSBA for consideration. Again, the deadline is June 15th.
Which is a very short window. So do you want to propose that for the next agenda?
Sure. Yeah, if anybody wants to get together with me, we can write a resolution or two and get it approved at the next meeting and then submit it to VSBA.
Okay. So Tim, you're going to take the lead on that one, okay?
Okay.
Well, you just did, so, in what you said. So, and you might want to send a reminder out to the entire board regarding resolutions. Okay, thank you. All right, so we leave the discussion as is. All right, and all right, so it is now 7 o'clock. Before we go into the administrative report, can we take a 10-minute break, stretch break? Okay, and we will reconvene at 7:09. Thank you. We're up to administrative report. Should we begin with hires, resignations, retirements? Mark?
Sounds good. So for tonight, I just have some resignations to present, and I'll just pair that with, I know for sure a number of these are in process in terms of being rehired or having new hires to present, but not at the stage where I can present those tonight, so that'll come the next meeting. So resignations, Chantel Albin, Dovra Plotkin, Kim Edgar, Logan Snow, Melissa White, Nancy Kowalski, Rafael Valor Navarro, and Sarah Manders.
All right, is there a motion to accept these resignations?
So moved with regret.
Seconded?
Okay, thank you. Discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you, with regret.
Okay, moving on, just an update on the admin board retreat planning process. We've had a couple of meetings totaling over 6 hours of meetings, and that has included a representative group from school boards and central office administration. And I think it's been a really great process, but we're working towards organizing the day on June 24th, where we're really taking a look at the CIP for next year, not only the umbrella CIP for the supervisory union, but more specifically individual school CIPs, which are being developed right now as well. So those are the big outcomes we're hoping for with the admin retreat. We're also planning some team building activities, and we're really trying to break up the day into chunks where there are different responsibilities of board members and administrators in terms of leading protocols and sections for the admin retreat, so that it's a productive day at the end of the day as we head towards July. So that's the update. Mo Hart will be locking down a venue and the food. Once I have that logistical information, I'll be sure to share that, whether at the next meeting or by email. But Mo has been working on that. The other thing in relation to the retreat upcoming at the summit on June 9th, really just to speak to that a little bit again, that's a moment in time where we're really looking deeply at this school year and where we started the school year, kind of where we were at the midpoint with the February summit, and then where we're landing in terms of the end of the school year. So we'll have a lot of data. We'll be reflecting on that data as it ties into our current continuous improvement plan. And that'll generally be the focus of the summit, both academically, social, emotionally, and behaviorally, in terms of program development and then data sources that we have to share. So I think they tie together nicely, those two events, in terms of just overall planning and growth towards goals. So that's the update there. Before we get into the climate results, I'm going to talk more about this tomorrow night at the SU meeting. We just wanted to share some developments with pre-K planning for next year. As you know, we opened the Canal Street School last year to create free public pre-K opportunities for Brattleboro town families. And that was in combination with the Oak Grove pre-K program, which has been in place for about a decade. We are moving next year where the Canal Street School will be the home to all of the public pre-K that is offered in Brattleboro. So the Oak Grove program will be moving into the Canal Street School with the program that we've developed this year. We're really excited about that. We think it's really good for equity, creates opportunities for more pre-K students to have experiences with each other, and also the teachers can form more better professional relationships being in the same building, having common planning time in terms of developing the program down the road. Ideally, 5 years from now, we have 4 to 5 cohorts of pre-K in that building, but next year we're focused on 2 cohorts. So we're trying to get the word out. On the 15th of this week, there's an open house at the school. That's for anybody in the public, whether you have a pre-K student to register, or if you're just interested in seeing some of the updates at the Canal Street School. I would encourage you to stop by for a visit. So another thing that we're working on is creating more parking for staff as we grow the program. So we do have a permit out. We've been talking with the town. We'll be attending a review board meeting on the 21st to look at turning an unused playground on Canal Street, which is right below the school, into a parking lot that is close to the building and creates better access for staff and families. So, and all of this will open up some additional opportunities at Oak Grove in terms of building a specialized program, which I'll talk more about tomorrow night, because it's more to the SU in terms of oversight. But we're excited about those developments. And then the other thing that we have prepared for tonight is we've just completed our caregiver panorama climate survey. So we have results, and thought this was a great opportunity to share these results with the board and then the greater public, and then have them accessible on our website to view in the future. So here's the first slide, and
Now it's not working.
it's just the intro page to the results, but we feel this is directly related to sense of belonging at our schools, in terms of how families are feeling about the experience. So again, we'll be looking at this type of data more deeply at the summit in relation to student climate and other climate data as well. But tonight, just to give you a glimpse of the feedback that we received most recently from families. So the way the survey is categorized, there's 3 major categories: overall school climate, school safety, and school fit. School climate is very much historical questions that we've been tracking for many years, but they're not nationally normed. But we can see a comparison. What we're looking at tonight is a comparison from last year to this year. So as you can see, pretty good news. We've gone up in all 3 categories by 5 points in school climate and school fit, and 1 point in school safety. Next slide. A challenge for us moving forward is to get more participation in the survey. We did get more responses this year, but minimally. So 578 surveys were completed. That's up from 555 last year. And you can see the different percentages from grade level to race and ethnicity.
Can we ask questions?
Sure.
There's 558. Would one family do a survey for like their 2nd grader and then a different survey for their 8th grader?
They have the ability to.
I would say it's variable. Some families probably filled it out for all of their children, and some may have chosen to do multiple surveys for multiple experiences, but I don't know the definitive answer to that.
And I'll say, as a parent, I filled one out for each of my kids' schools.
That's a good question.
Different codes.
I can say as a parent, I filled one out for 2 different grades in the same school. And that was something that our principal, that was asked of the principal, and the principal responded to kind of give his advice. But my sense resonates with what Mark said, what hasn't been consistently applied. But, and I also think that it is important to give kind of freedom for the caregivers to decide how they do it. We don't want to apply too much pressure.
Yeah, so with 2,300 students, we can surmise that there's what, about 500 families out of 23?
More than that.
Yeah.
I'd say.
So the participation is not that great.
We would I mean, it's up from last year, which is always a plus, but I would think we want that percentage to be higher and higher as we continue to utilize the resource. So the first section that we're going to take a look at, that I'm going to speak to before I turn it over to Kate, is school fit. And this just shows over time kind of a percentage change. And the category in general, that's some really nice growth from 2021 to this year, from 59% to 66%. And from just last year, 61% to 66% this year. And generally, as we go through the results, we're gonna see increases throughout all of the categories, which is really nice. So that's school fit. Here we're taking a look at the percentile in terms of school fit, and you can see we're right there in the 60th percentile, or 66th percentile. And that's compared to national norms. Here's a series of school fit questions, and you can see there's an uptick in all of the questions, which is nice. Some of the larger upticks, the last one on that slide, the question is, given your child's cultural background, how good of a fit is their school? So up 8 percentage points from last year. The 6-point increase, how well do activities offered at your child's school match their interests? 6% increase is a nice percentage increase. How do you feel your child's school is preparing them for their next academic year? A 5% jump. So, pretty good. I mean, we want to see all those percentages in the 80s. I would, down the road. But also you have to respect growth over time. And we're seeing that feedback. The next slide.
What else is me?
Oh, yeah.
It's me.
Turn it over to Kate.
So school climate, which is measuring the perceptions of the overall social and learning climate of the school. You can see an increase from March of 24, which is about a 5% increase, which is great. And even the 2021, the family school relationship survey in 21, and then the previous year mid-year survey. So we even surpassed that. Which is great, and that was the year there were smaller cohorts due to COVID restrictions. So it's a positive trend to see us back to where we were. And these are not nationally normed because they're custom questions on our survey, so just a note of that. So these are some of the questions, and an increase in favorable responses for every question, just like school fit. The greatest increase being 8 points higher, which is how well do administrators at your child's school create a school environment that helps children learn. That was the greatest increase. And additionally, how much does the school value the diversity of children's backgrounds is up 7. So quite a few. significant increase in favorable responses. I went too far. Sorry, right here. Any questions about this?
Yeah, I would guess that the district really wants to focus on that first one, increasing that 52%.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yes. And that is tied to engagement, which is at its core, like really the most important thing, student engagement.
School safety, which also did see a small increase over previous years, not back to, again, in 2021, the mid-year survey, when, again, those COVID restrictions, so there were much smaller cohorts, even some students online.
Yeah, close to half our population was in remote school at
Yeah.
that time, and our in-school was small pods of 6 to 8 kids in a classroom, going to school 2 to 3 days a week. So it's a totally different world.
This one is always interesting to me, you know, like safety is so important and on the forefront of a lot of our minds, especially when we hear about things like, you know, around our country and the state of our country and, you know, incidents that happens in schools, school shootings, those sorts of things. So I think this one, people naturally feel and have that perception of, you know, is my kid safe when I drop them off? It's always a top priority for us, but for me, thinking about in what way can we communicate and engage families around how we keep kids safe and what that looks like, because maybe that's a missing piece. So for school safety, compared to schools with a medium free reduced lunch percentage, non-urban setting, similar to us, we are in the 20th percentile. So there's room for growth there. And again, the individual questions, there was an increase in all areas with the greatest increase overall. How unsafe does your child feel at school? Those are favorable responses. So the example that they have to answer, would be like almost never or once in a while are favorable, considered favorable responses. If somebody responded sometimes to that bottom question there, that's an unfavorable response. Almost always and frequently were also. So those are examples of just responses that they can give that are either can be favorable or unfavorable. With this slide in particular, I think my brain's tripping up a little bit because the questions are
Negative.
in the negative.
Yeah.
And so does it mean that you know, well, I like to see how we've changed from last year. And so, you know, everything has gone up, but in this slide, is going up really not what we want? No, it is. So that's what I was saying. So like, they're answering, so the question, for question number 1, how often do you worry about violence at your child's school? They either answered almost never or once in a while. Those are considered favorable.
Those are favorable. Okay,
Yep.
that's helpful. Thank you.
Sometimes, frequently, and almost always are unfavorable.
Okay.
It's a great question.
Yeah.
So still on this one, higher numbers are good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
And they
that's
are
good, 'cause
sometimes
it's-
inverse, yeah.
I've been really happy seeing the numbers, and then I thought, oh wait. So it's
Yeah, they
good
trip
here.
you up with this one a little bit. So, but that 86% is great.
So then within the 3 categories, there's subgroups, and we benefited from AI helping us do a little summary of the comments. So here's kind of just an overview of some of the patterns that we're seeing in these subtopics. So mental health and student support's one that sticks out to me is the request for more structured parent support groups. That seems like something we could really target as something to improve for next year. We do have things in place like the CPAC, which meets fairly regularly, leadership councils, PTOs. But what other ways can we support our parents feeling part of the school and the school community? So that's a takeaway for me that really stood out. In terms of academics and teaching, another one that stood out is proficiency-based grading. Certainly an area where we're looking to show improvements, especially at the upper levels. And feedback from parents is not as much screen time. If you can reduce the amount of screens, that's something that families are looking for, and I can relate to that for sure. And then at the upper level, a pattern was more support around college prep moving forward. So on the positive, some really strong praise for strong teachers and positive classroom environments that have been developed. School culture and discipline. Really thinking about teacher behavior and consistency and what's allowed in some classrooms and maybe not others. Certainly something to continue to look at. We talked a lot about bathrooms over the years, so that was still a bit of a theme that came through in the results. I would say not to the extent that it was 3 years ago. I think we've definitely seen a decrease in bathroom safety and behavior, but it's still a concern. It's something we need to continue to look at. Extracurriculars, the arts and sports. This is what families, they love, as many opportunities they can provide their children through the public school experience as possible. So that's something that's certainly a takeaway. And as we've developed after school programs at our elementary schools, that has really been a focus. So to see that naturally that is something that our families and community are really interested in continuing to build on, I see as a good thing. Facilities, this one was interesting for me personally. Criticism of landscaping neglect and greenery. I would want to dig a little further into that and look at the specific feedback in the comments that are tailored to that. And I think
the middle school leadership council has been addressing landscaping. They have a really good plan in the works.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think that those are like easy lifts. Those are things that we can accomplish fairly easily without like changing a system. So I'd be interested in looking at that, specifically school by school. I'm sure principals will want to see what that means to their school sites. Yeah. Those are summer projects that we could target. And of course, more opportunities at recess. There has been a movement around outdoor bike programs at some of our schools. So, and then to the next slide.
Can I just,
Sure.
Something came up at the Dummerston Leadership Council having to do with foreign language in elementary schools. And what was voiced was, to quote, a lack of equity across the district, that certain schools introduce foreign languages, whereas there is no foreign language teacher at a given school, and yet it's introduced at BAMS, where kids are taking the foreign language. So some come in stronger than others. It will no doubt come up at a board meeting, just raising that issue.
Next slide. Equity and inclusion. some concern about the misuse of AI moving forward, and I think that's definitely on the radar for all educators. Some mixed feedback on how we're supporting groups of students. Communication and administration, frustration with unanswered emails. Let's say there's frustration with getting 7,000 emails in a week. That's a bear. I mean, access to teachers and administrators is so easy.
Bryn did tell me that the better you get at responding to emails, the more you end up getting.
Yeah. So emails is a tough one, but certainly appreciate requests for better communication from all areas, whether it's myself, principals, teachers, counselors. Communication is huge. It's so important that we're communicating effectively with our communities. So that should always be on our radar in terms of how we're promoting our schools and also communicating the opportunities that are coming up, and also communicating for and asking for feedback. That is not just once a year on a survey, but throughout the year, so we can really assess in real time how certain initiatives or programs are going, or opportunities. And then safety and environment, overall, this was an increase throughout our schools. A worry about teacher turnover, which is understandable. Vaping has been a topic that we've spent a lot of time on at the elementary through the high school, but that is a concern that educators share as well. Teacher turnover, I think we are turning a corner there in terms of what that is looking like. Teacher turnover has decreased this year in comparison to last year and then the year before. So the pattern in what we're seeing through the HR office is positive, but I understand the worry about teacher turnover because that has absolutely been a thing with coming out of COVID, and it's been a major challenge. So that's kind of the summary, and then we have some school-specific thoughts that Kate's going to talk about.
So just like after our initial student climate survey, where we kind of analyzed that data and came up with steps to work towards improving school-specific data, we've gotten some priority actions based on our school feedback. And what I will say is that, majority of schools saw an increase in all areas, which is great. So some of the things that we are working on and have put in place are proving to work. And so a lot of what schools are talking about is just continuing with that, and then, fine tuning some of the areas that, from the data that we received through the parent survey, and a lot of that is around communication and input from families and engaging families more in this work, better understanding the data at each school and why folks responded the way they did in certain categories. So that's in a nutshell, and you can see the individual action steps. I'm not going to read them.
And this is related to the individual continuous improvement plans that each school is developing, that we will be prepared to share at that admin board retreat on the 24th. So we've created a kind of a deadline of May 30th or June 1st to have all of those school-based plans submitted, so that we can review those and prepare an activity, a creative activity for how to share that at the retreat. So that's still to be determined, but as members of the board who serve on that committee know, I think we're heading in the right direction in terms of creating an activity for that. But that's the general feedback that we received in terms of looking at the whole supervisory union, and then principals and teaching staff and LCs, and they're looking specifically at the individual school feedback with their school communities. Tim?
So we saw from the EQS that there's a big call for disaggregation of data like this by ethnic groups, by poverty and such. Can we get this disaggregated by those groups?
I think we likely can. Right?
Yeah, it is possible in the Panorama system to go question by question to choose different subgroups to disaggregate by. And it's a web-based browser, it doesn't just do a big download, but it is possible to dig in there both at the SU level and the school level to dig in question by question. And that's also, you can see those percentages of like what percent were strongly disagree versus disagree on some of that detailed level.
Also for our refugee families, I know Jen and Deb sent out a survey that they had translated in various languages. Can Panorama do that? Can you give this to families in a translated form?
I don't know the answer
to that off the top of my head. I know we do have a challenge with translating for some of our ML families because we have so many different languages spoken at this point that a lot of times we use either translation software or and so that's done separately for each language. So often when our ML leaders are doing that, they're translating it into whatever languages are represented at that school, sending it home in paper format, and then serving as that interface to enter the information. We can certainly look into that. I would imagine that there's some translation services for a few priority languages in terms of like percentage of people nationally that are speaking languages. But we haven't yet found a software program that we're using day to day for our curricular programs that translate to every language that's needed for our families yet.
Yeah, like in the very beginning it said surveys, who completed it.
Mm-hmm.
There's only 8 families that identified as Asian. I imagine, I don't know, do Middle Easterners identify as Asian? They don't.
It depends on where you're talking about, but generally.
Yeah.
So Tim asked a question about disorganized groups. And your response was it has to be done question by question, which makes me think it's really tedious doing it. Got it. Okay, right.
We can ask Erin if we could get like an Excel file or a CSV file to download, and if we could do that, we could put it in a pivot table and pull some summaries in that way. So I'll check into that.
Because it's important.
That would be great.
The non-English speaking families are likely the ones that may feel most disengaged from the district.
And as well as issues of safety, right? Who feels safe, who doesn't. Okay, so you're gonna look into that, thank you. Jessica.
I just have a bit of feedback, and it may be that I didn't see it, but I am guilty of not filling out the survey as a parent, and I wanted to. I took a photo of the flyer I saw at the school and was planning to do it, but I don't think there was a deadline on the flyer, which if there's no deadline for me, it just kind of floats off into the, like, it'll be done at some point. So that would be helpful to know, like, please fill it out by this date. Even if it's a fake date and you extend it, it's helpful for me to be like, okay, I gotta do this by Friday or whatever.
That's really good feedback.
So that is, from a parent perspective, is helpful for me.
Yeah, that goes, I think, to Ruby's point. Give me a date, I'll put it on my calendar,
Yeah.
right? And I know I have to get it done before that date, right? Other comment, Ruby?
I really appreciated the slides related to the priority action feedback. The work that the administrators, I assume, did to think and kind of coalesce the nugget that they took away. That was really helpful to see. And and I noticed a theme was around community engagement and letting people know in communications. And so I would just encourage at a district level, I would love to see some kind of like a one-pager or a very concise document that takes some of the points here, particularly those priority action points, and puts them into one document. And I think that would be a great document to translate, you know, for the variety of languages that are needed in our district. Because I think that there are definitely parents who are just disengaged enough. Like they're not gonna come to leadership council, they're not watching the recordings of this meeting, and they're not meeting with their teachers. But they might have a print, like there might be some printed material that they would grab and something in their email that they would open. So I think it's just an opportunity to have a different delivery point, and it feels like low-hanging fruit because you've done it. You know, like it's right there. It just needs to be massaged differently into a different format, and I think that it helped that particularly those slides helped me to see the district as a whole, you know, and it does, and also to see the flavor and, you know, the values that are reflected in each of those schools. It's not like they're not apples and oranges. They're all the same, you know, they're all fruits, but they definitely have different flavors in each school, which is nice.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you. And I think that's, yeah.
I heard.
Follow up to Erin's law. I'm not really sure specifically what that is in terms of training for students. You know, we do provide that through our counseling and health departments. I know you had heard from a student, you got feedback from a student.
Yeah, I did. And I don't see student hands up at this point. My understanding from the feedback I received is the need for students to be active bystanders. That it's not just up to the adult passing by in the hallway, it's up to everyone standing in a group. Because if we're silent, even as students hearing something from someone in the group, it's being complicit. And it makes the person who's targeted feel even more isolated. It's a way of building allyship in a very concrete way.
Yep.
So that was the gist of it.
Yeah, that's really important work, and I think it's a common. I think we have historical data from the student climate surveys around feelings of active bystanders and whether it's happening or not happening. Just speaking off of you know, past memory of those surveys, but. Certainly a topic that is important. You know, we try to, you know, if you see something, you gotta say something. We definitely want to educate our students around harassment and bullying, and inappropriate actions, whether it's from adults or peers or students. But
Yeah. I think
I don't think there's like one training
No,
that
there
like you
isn't.
sit down and do, here's the act one.
and now you
But
know
it's
it.
multiple
Right.
layers.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think especially, well, adults need this as well, but the issue of role play, of helping kids when they hear something and they are themselves, if they open their mouths, they are fearful of being bullied themselves.
Sure.
Right? I mean, that is the fear and why people keep their mouths shut. And so language that can be used, you know, and sometimes, you know, I don't know whether this is okay or not, but, well, obviously, to sometimes say, well, I think you're a jerk for saying that.
Yeah.
something that throws it back in a strong way, that puts people on notice.
Yeah,
Anyway,
no, I agree.
yeah,
And
yeah.
we do have some programming. Second Step is a curriculum that we implement K through 12. It is that. It's a lot of role playing and scenarios and around whole class discussions. And the counselors across the SU have asked for that consistency from school to school.
Okay, great. Ruby?
I was actually going to ask Hannah to speak at the BOHS Leadership Council. There was mention of some initiatives at the high school level around, I can't remember if it was a mentorship program or something that was like bringing back some work that was vibrant before COVID. So it was a rebuilding of kind of mentorship type stuff. And so I wondered if you could speak to that, because I think it was really, it touches on some of these issues, and it was, and it's impactful beyond just the high school because it was reaching down into leadership at the middle school level and bringing it up. That's what I heard in the leadership council.
I wish I could remember what you're talking about right now, but one thing we did talk about was just peer tutoring, which I think is something we're trying to bring back. And the thing I was gonna mention is that there's a group that puts forth 1% funds to do youth mental health first aid trainings to train students on how to do that work. And when I was talking with Ricky earlier today, he was talking about the idea of like those students then pushing into advisories in the fall to go around and speak with all the students in the building around what that looks like and how to help support and so on and so forth. So kind of training students on how to do some of that work with some adult support.
I think that's what that along with some of the kind of middle school leadership stuff is what I think was impactful.
Yeah.
Jessica?
I'm curious, so Erin's law is targeted specifically around child sexual assault and how to prevent and where kids can go. So are there targeted trainings in health class or whatever that are covering that? I'm curious what that curriculum looks like.
Can I speak to that? Yeah. Or at the middle level. So the 7th grade, the counselors go around, they have a curriculum called Flirting or Hurrying. When is it okay? When is it harassment? So they do that with the 7th graders. The 8th graders, they do straight talk about sexting and messaging. And then Nancy Goodhue, our health teacher, she uses the safety program, which is SAFE-T, and that's done by Prevent Child Abuse Vermont. And it's a 10 lesson, so there's 10 lessons in each grade level on this topic. So it's a really highly used program, and she's really proud of it. She's a certified instructor. She also does our training with our staff as well. So.
Can I add to that? We have some grant funding through an AOE grant called the Stronger Connections Grant. We're in year 2 of 3 of that, and along with that we've had a health coach for some of our elementary schools. So a nurse from Putney Central actually one day a week has been serving as a coach for health education for some of our K-6 classrooms. And an additional curriculum program that's been used is the 3 R's program, which stands for rights, respect, and responsibility. And so those are age-appropriate lessons starting as early as kindergarten that have been made available that is also kind of a precursor to, so again, like continual work. It's not just like here's one thing and then it's done in an age-appropriate way where, you know, at the pre-K or K level, that might be like, how do I advocate for myself if my friend took my toy? Versus it, and then growing in complexity. So that's been a real wonderful opportunity for us through that grant, and that will continue next year as we kind of solidify those resources. There are many resources there, and sometimes the challenge is fitting everything on the plate. And so we're trying to make that as accessible as possible for our schools right now to also make sure that kids have a consistent education in those topics throughout their trajectory.
It's very interesting to hear very young children say things like, respect my space, right?
Yeah.
Which is part of what that education is about. And it's really cool It's not okay for the adult just to engulf the kid and say, oh, I'm so glad to see you. It's like, may I?
Yes.
Right. To empower young people that just because I'm a relative, it doesn't give me the right. The other thing that I want to support is, reinforce, is the notion of students teaching students, talking to students. There's a great deal of respect from young person to young person, sooner than feeling that they're being lectured by yet another adult.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tim.
So, half the board is not here in 2022. In August, when Keith gave a terrific presentation, the slideshow presentation on Erin's Law. You recall that? And I'm
Just
glad
the
that
terrific part, that's right.
it really was good. And Kate, I'm glad that you're here too, because Kate Markaitis also did a very good presentation on Erin's Law, the history of Erin's Law, information on lessons for elementary school students, national child abuse statistics, and so on. So we got to elementary and we got to middle school, and the plan was, this was 4 principals ago, was for the principal to present what the high school is doing, and he was going to collaborate with the Women's Freedom Center on a presentation for high school students, really focusing on such important issues like grooming. Every student in high school should graduate knowing what grooming is. We're not immune to that. So my question is, well, first, Keith and Kate, could you put those presentations, if you still have them, up on the website? And for the high school, what's the plan for Erin's Law? It's a law that requires sexual assault prevention for every student. Are you still collaborating with the Women's Freedom Center? What's happening?
There is still some collaboration with the Women's Freedom Center. I think what you're referring to happened 3 or 4 years ago, and it was a panel discussion in the auditorium.
Oh, no, it was a board meeting.
No. I think
Next step.
the Women's Freedom Center came and did a panel discussion for our students.
Okay.
This is my area. This is what I did for 20 years, was teach these lessons to students. And so this is like the safety curriculum, We Care for Kids. It's all part of the same Prevent Child Abuse Vermont framework that they put out, and it's fantastic. Unfortunately, they don't have great resources at the high school level right now, or haven't, and I can look more into it, but I think the stuff that Ricky is planning on doing with students next year definitely meets the standards around what needs to happen for Act 1.
I think our goal would be to pick any student in high school and ask that person, what do you know about grooming? And that student to have some kind of response. Wouldn't that be kind of a baseline?
Yeah.
Yeah, teenagers have that information, for sure. Be aware of that.
Jessica.
I have 2 follow-up. The one is, if nothing exists curriculum-wise in Vermont that ties into Erin's Law, I was part of the committee in Connecticut when they passed Erin's Law and developed like a recommended curriculum from they changed their name, but Connecticut Alliance to End Sexual Violence, I think it was. And they had some good programs as far as like even prepping seniors for like what to know when you go to college and all the different like prevention. And we did a lot of active bystander trainings type of prevention work. So looking into what other states are doing may be helpful. And then the other follow-up question I had is, what trainings and resources are available for parents and caregivers at all grade levels?
So the high school had, I don't remember her name right now, she came over from Bennington, but she came to do her Act 1 training for staff, and she did a parent night for parents.
Do you remember how well attended the parents' night was?
Horrible.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, it raises the issue
Yeah.
about bringing people in
Yeah.
to these events, yeah.
I'm sorry, Jessica. Can you give me any information about the Connecticut? Do you know what the organization was?
Yeah, it's the name of the organization that was a big part of doing it. It was DCF did part of it, Department of Children and Families. They were involved in the working group. It was the Connecticut Alliance to End Sexual Violence, I think is their name now. And I think there was one other group involved in the work to create that curriculum, and they kind of looked at what the different centers similar to the Women's Freedom Center in the state were doing, and they pulled all of the resources together and combed through it and decided kind of what would be best practice. This was 10 years ago at this point, so it may have shifted and changed since then, but that's where it was.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this kind of training and discussion among young people, with young people, discussion is critical. I mean, when I think about the UHS, this is the last opportunity we have. That's it. And then it's over. Because even going on to college, there are too many young people, well, in my opinion, are specializing too early and not taking advantage of, a liberal arts kind of smorgasbord to pick and choose from, to see where their interests lie. But going to Jessica's point, parties, college, making sure you partner with someone, who's the designated driver, all of those reminders young people need to hear again and again and again. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, I'm glad this conversation came up. Consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda, which is warrants and approval of minutes, payroll? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you.
Can I abstain since I wasn't at the last meeting? I read the minutes and watched it, but I wasn't here, so I don't.
You may, but you don't have to.
Okay, well then I won't.
Okay, then that vote carried. That vote carried. Good, unanimous. Thank you very much. And now we are on to unfinished business. The Policy and Amendment Committee presents for a first reading F8, student medication. It's quite detailed. All right, and is there any new business? Okay, so with that in mind, is there a motion to find that premature general public knowledge would clearly place the public body or a person involved at a substantial disadvantage?
So moved. Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Is there a motion to enter into executive session under 1 V.S.A. 313A1E, pending or probable civil litigation or a prosecution to which the public body is or may be a party? Inviting in Mark Spino.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? There will be no action.